again, giving a good tap in, helping everybody to remember and to be reminded of the importance of us taking care of one another in this very, very challenging time. For now going on 5 months, we have been dealing with an epidemic of epic proportions. We have been dealing with COVID-19 coronavirus, and we have made our own way. We've built our own supply chain to make sure that we are getting free masks and free sanitizer to some of our most under-resourced and vulnerable communities all across the country. So thank you. Thank you for all the many ways you've been supportive. Thank you for all the many ways you've donated. Thank you for all you who are volunteering in 25 cities all across the country, helping us to get this out into the communities. Listen, I need you to keep donating. Keep going to livefreeusa.org and keep donating and making sure that we have all the resources needed to scale this work up all across the country. And I'm so glad to have our guest MC coming in the room, the great Susie Schuster. Say what's up to the people.
Pastor Mike, I'm so happy to be back with you. I feel very grateful and blessed to be with you. I'm thrilled to bring a couple friends with me today to make your show that much better, to try to convince people to keep doing the great work that you're doing. And I just want to say once again, I'm grateful. Thanks for having me.
I'm honored to have you. And thank you for being an early adopter, early believer, early amplifier for our work with Mass for the People. And y'all may not appreciate that Susie's been opening up other doors for us as well to make sure we get the vote out, make sure that we make this election one for the ages. And maybe in a couple of weeks when we air our first PSA coming in from some of her friends in Hollywood, we'll bring you back and we can preview that together.
It was really great. I mean, when you asked me for a little bit of help, I was so happy that I could share my contacts with you, because that is right. I mean, that's what we do down here. We try to write scripts and stories that will move you, that will appeal to your inner compassion. And when I told people that I needed help for you, people were so excited. And one of the hottest shows in TV stopped their production to get stuff going for you. So that's really great.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing. So we're going to get into it because, like you said, we got some of your best homies and comrades that have agreed to come on. And we're asking all of you, please share this. This is going to be an amazing conversation. Obviously, the Democratic National Convention is happening this week. And so all eyes are about to be on Milwaukee virtually as Michelle Obama and a host of folks kick off the DNC week. So we have about an hour's worth of preview. I guess we are the pre-show to the Democratic National Convention this year. Ain't that something?
That's not bad to be like getting ready for Michelle Obama. If you told me a couple days ago I was going to be the pre-show for her, I would have been happy about that.
Right? I didn't know either. They put the schedule out so late, so I just read it about an hour ago. So I was like, well,
I hear you.
We got some good stuff. So why don't we bring in our first guest, Brother Hank Willis Thomas, come on in the room. He is a conceptual artist working primarily with themes related to perspective, identity, commodity, media, popular culture. His work has been exhibited throughout the United States and abroad, including the International Center for Philanthropy in New York, the Guggenheim Museum in Spain, these other museums that I can't pronounce. What is that? Musée de Quay Bradley. Is that right, bro? Did I do that right? All right. The one I'm most excited about is where me and you actually met real briefly, was the Lynching Museum down in Montgomery. I don't know if you remember me and you and Justin, my friend Justin at Google. We met right at your exhibit with the hands lifted up. So we got to talk. But it's great. Welcome to the show, man, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you. It's great to see you again. It's really great to be here. Thank you, Susie, for inviting me.
Always.
Important work.
Yeah, well, Susie, tell us a little bit about the way in which y'all connected, because when Susie first told me that, she asked me, do you know a guy named Hank Willis Thomas? And I was like, I don't know, because, I'm not one of these, I haven't been, I'm not a Renaissance man, I'm not, I don't go to museums and stuff like that, until I started seeing your work. And I'm like, I got to check this brother out. And it turned out we had met, but I want you to know Susie is like a walking billboard for you and your work. Tell us about
Well, this is what I will tell you about Hank. I've known Hank now for about a decade. Hank is one of the most important, most influential Black artists to date. He has changed the landscape of art. And I would say this because he won't say it for himself, but he has changed the way everybody, regardless of color, looks at art. He's examined age-old stereotypes and put a spin on them. In my own house, I have a big giant piece of my wall that's an Absolute bottle from the ads from the 90s, and it says at the bottom Absolute Power, but only after you look at it do you actually see that there are slaves existing within the ship. And it's all about Hank, if I might. It's all about the Black community's relationship with advertising. Another piece that I love so much is a piece that's from a sharecropping. Wasn't this back from when you had a football player on one side and a sharecropper on the other? And you examined, I should probably have you explain your own art, but it examined the stereotypes within greater sports. The piece that my mom has in her house is Hank himself with a Nike swoosh on his skull. I love it because you make people think, Hank. And I wonder if you could explain to the people watching this how you got started and how you were able to make people uncomfortable in their own skin as they examined art.
Well, this is I guess a legacy. I am artist, art historian, and photographic historian who was really dedicated to showing the history of Black photographers who were telling a different story of the Black experience than mainstream society that went back to 1839, so even before the Emancipation Proclamation. And I think it's important for us to look at photography and use it as a tool to really reconsider our values, what we think is important and who we think is important. And I hope after people might be shocked on some end that they also feel inspired to actually engage in the critical issues, not only of the past, but also of our time.
Yeah, it is indeed the case, bro, that we're living in some, man, crazy times. I mean, I joke, people ask me, how you doing? I'm like, trying to survive the apocalypse. I mean, what, as someone who obviously sees the world through the third eye of like art, and I know that you are a deep student of history, if you are indeed such a great artist, what would you say just about this moment we're in and the need, if never before, for people to use their imagination to help figure out how to make sense of it and how to envision a world to come?
Yeah, well, you just said it better than I could. I think that this is, everyone has an inner artist. It may not look like art as we think of it, but everyone was born with creativity, and environments and moments like this, even when you see like the restaurants and the way that all these businesses have changed their way of working so fast, I think it tells us that, you know, we're a lot more flexible. We're a lot more capable of facing challenges, especially when we are creative together. And obviously faith is critical to that, because you have to believe that there's a future worth working for and imagining about. And I hope that moments like this, where we see parts of the government being very creative about disenfranchising people, and I think we have to be more and more creative about making sure that everyone goes out and gets and exercises their right to vote safely in this time. And I know we can do it.
You know, Pastor Mike, that was one of the reasons why I wanted Hank to come on. His organization is called For Freedoms, FOR Freedoms. And it's all about using artists' voice to tap into the zeitgeist of what's going on right now, and to demand that you look at it. And that's exactly what you're doing with Masks for the People. You are demanding that people see that there are people in need who don't have access to protective gear. So basically what you're both invigorating your community. You're both standing up and saying, look within, we have to rescue ourselves. We're getting past the need to be rescued. So what For Freedoms does is it forces people to look at this through the lens of an artist. And I'm always amazed at some of the billboards and some of the pieces that Hank has come up with. His piece outside the Lynching Museum forces you to confront our history's past. And you can't look away from it in the same way that his billboards from For Freedoms force you to look at what's happening in the present. And that's the exact same thing that you're doing in raising money for Masks for the People. You're forcing people to see that there is a catastrophe on our hands and that we cannot look aside any longer. Yeah.
Yeah. I always wonder, like, for me, the things that really catalyze my imagination when I have to preach or do social justice or humanitarian work is just responding to the suffering of people. What's one of your biggest catalysts, Hank? I mean, that piece, when I was at the Lynching Museum and I was there with Justin Steele, and we were walking through that, I didn't even know who had made that piece with their hands up like that. And I just was saying to myself, man, like what catalyzed you, or what catalyzes you in general to come up with such iconic pieces? I mean, I don't want to just reduce it all to the Holy Ghost in your life or nothing like that. But I'm just curious, like what moves you in that kind of way?
Basically, I think you can deduce it to the Holy Ghost. You know, it has many names. You mentioned the third eye before. I really believe, my daughter is here.
Hey, baby girl.
I really believe that artists, you know, community activists, you know, obviously people of the cloth, politicians even, and even, well, I feel like everyone is working, everyone alive is working towards a better future. And I feel like that we are guided, you know, we choose this life and we choose to be together. And what I believe, especially as an African-American male in this country, every breath is an act of faith. And because we know that something could be a threat to and then someone will cause us harm. And so I think a lot of what drives me to do some of this work, especially in the public, is, you know, the hope that one day someone who has the ability to harm me or someone I love will see me and them as a person. And that's not something you can really prepare for in a really specific way.
Well, you have a couple of partnerships here that I'd love for you to talk a little bit about. One is an effort that you're doing with Sakai, Love Over Rules, the Spring 2021 collection. Talk to us a little bit about that. I feel like it's about to be another set of game-changing pieces of art you're about to unleash into the world, huh? Yeah, well,
this is a global pandemic, and I think the social issues that we're addressing are also global, and recognizing that, you know, a lot of the issues that we're facing don't care about borders, that we need to create a mindset, a collective mindset of optimism and create a positivity bias. And
positivity bias. Come on.
Because, you know, there's such a, you know, they say that given all things being equal, but people, so my daughter here, selling.
That's okay. We all have them. It's okay. We all have kids.
Well, you know, they say, you know, two people can look the same thing, but we're always looking at what's wrong with the situation rather than what's right with it. And if we can create an ability to look at every moment, even when we're struggling, with an eye towards positivity, I think it would be really good when it comes to creating the world that we really deserve and that we all are working for. So Love Over Rules collaboration with Sakai, a Japanese clothing brand, who is really on the cutting edge of fashion, a lot of stuff that I can't even really imagine. I like, as far as like, you know, you see crazy fashion, you're like, oh, I'm now cool, you know, and it's so amazing to be working with them and see how my work resonates there. And I think it's coming out in early 2021. And I think in a moment like this, where a lot of people can't go and see art, it's important to go find ways to do it through fashion and other mediums. We go pick her up.
That's okay. You know, the other piece that I would love to talk about is how you look at prisons within the greater society and the way that you have examined how this country incarcerates Black men. And I wonder if you could share your thoughts on that as well. Hi, baby.
Hey, cutie. Look at that. Look at that piece of art. That's your favorite piece of art yet, huh?
Yeah. Her name is Zanzi.
You just got muted.
So we're trying to do dinner. Like, that's the thing. Timing is totally different in moments like this. I'm trying to speak. So one of the things that we know is that slavery never actually was abolished in our country. It just transformed. And the prison industrial complex is, you know, as Sam Pollard in his incredible documentary talks about, slavery by another name. So I am making a hot mess over here. I hope you guys are enjoying it. But that's the reality. Is this is slavery by another name, and mass incarceration is against the values of our society, and the fact that we are also exporting that to other parts of the world as a and maybe that punishment is America's greatest export, because you'll go to places in Brazil and even Hong Kong and Rwanda, and even in Europe, and they're practicing punishment the same way that we do in the United States. So we're the experts on punishment. And so how do we actually become the experts on transformative justice and restorative justice, and start to go back and look at other practices of responding to harm that might have been done within the community, and repairing those through, I believe, through love and creative engagement.
Yeah, talking all power to the people. That's a whole nother kind of expression. I would think a lot of what you've been talking about. How do you empower folks to? I love how you said it. We are experts at exporting punishment. I mean that's quite a wordplay. Hopefully, we can become experts at importing self-determination and power and generosity. Talk about that effort you're working on as well.
You read my mind. I'm really wondering how we can create a currency of generosity. The currency of money has not actually served all of us well, and even those who have a lot of money are not fulfilled. So I think generosity is actually probably the best form of currency, and we haven't yet learned how to quantify it. And I'm hoping that we can realize that this world, this life, this planet is abundant with incredible gifts, and the fact that we are even communicating the way we are now is testament to the power and the infinite gifts that our planet has given us. And so I'd also suggest that there's ways that we're also can expand that through creativity, generosity, and and positive thinking. And so I don't know. I'm not trying to say that. I don't know any other way to stop mass incarceration. I don't know any other way to respond to violence or mismanagement of public health that's been going on, not just for 5 months, but probably for at least 7 decades. So, those are a lot of things that I hope that we can pay more attention to, so that in 70 or 50 or 20 years from now, or 140 years from now, we're not still playing this or that finite game and embracing the infinite game. I also want to point out that Susie, of course, has incredible community of athletes who open so many doors for so many of us through their not only through their talent, but through their creative way of playing the game, not only on the field, but also on the field. And that a lot of the issues that we're addressing in this moment would not have happened if it weren't for just one football player who took a stand for a knee for what he believed. And it's not lost on me that she's never this loud. Let me just tell you, she's loving you all.
We loving her back.
Yeah.
Pastor Mike, can we bring in Michael Irvin now, and so that we could have the conversation in a 4-screen? And poor Navarro, he's going to never let me back on again. But I was thinking we could bring in Mike, and he could join
for a few seconds. Come on and bring the playmaker, number 88, Hall of Fame wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, my arch nemesis team, since I am a San Francisco 49er guy. But let's see. Come on and bring Michael Irvin in the room. Let's see if we can get him in. Navarro.
I'm going to text Mike. He's
still
having
happy.
but we're going to get him on right now. I'll tell you something. For some of us spoiled people with TV, it takes us a while to figure out the intranet, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to help Mike get on. But why don't we talk just for 1 second while I get Mike on about 4 Freedoms? Because I feel like I'd love to find a way for more people to learn about what you're doing, getting the message out about politics and art, and bringing that together for the community and the greater nation at large.
Sure. Well, but I wanted to finish the point I was saying about what happened when someone took a knee, and that 4 years later, an officer took a knee on someone's neck during a pandemic who was saying, "I can't
Mm.
breathe." And I do, and I don't think that was a coincidence. I think there is something greater going on, and a lot of times when we make a gesture that is often misread or take a stand, so to speak, we really have to rely on our faith and follow through in order to see the fruits of it, in spite of adversity that we're faced. And were you gonna say something, Pastor Mike?
Oh man, that was so deep. There's that connection. I had made that, the connection made between him taking a knee, obviously George Floyd having the knee in the neck, but the way that symbolism has now literally been flipped on its head, right? One was an act of peace that enraged, I think, those who have too much proximity to oppressive forces, and the other was an act of violence that literally traumatized many of us who have a lot of proximity to being oppressed.
Well, also during a time that there was a global pandemic where people were worried about their breath. So with For Freedoms, a lot of what we are interested in is looking back at history with an eye towards the future. Hey, it's the mighty Irvin.
There we go.
Oh man.
Hey, listen. Hey, dude, how's everybody doing? I'm laughing. I'm laughing, guys, because Susie hit me up. My assistant, who's my oldest daughter, is pregnant with my grandchild, so I let her go. I told Susie, I said, Susie, I know football, I know TV. All of this stuff I do not know. And it's 6 p.m. and my assistant is gone. This was going to be scary from the get-go, but I'm glad we got it. We got it done.
Well, welcome to the show, and glad to have you. But Hank was just talking about the inspirational nature of sports, and we were talking about Cap and his activism, and how it literally some years later, that same action of kneeling has literally redefined the way this country is trying to reimagine itself. And so just, Hank, you want to just jump back in and finish your riff about inspiration, because I do think it, we have someone who's been a pretty inspirational player. I was saying just for the record that I'm a 49er fan, so you weren't inspiring to me. I just want you to know that.
That's a joke.
I mean, Michael, this is a man of the cloth, and he just keeps going after my guests. I'm not going to bring anybody anymore. Video froze.
Yeah, I mean, that means you weren't a fan because you saw the damage that was done.
He kept us from three-peating a couple times. He lost one. We lost one of our rings because of inspiration.
They were embarrassing everybody. That's the beauty of it. It's just like, how can you? It wasn't even fun to watch football then. Everybody.
Hank, I had Marshall Falk come on last week, and he did the same. Threw him under the bus too. This is a man of the cloth. A man of the cloth.
Well, that's why he likes Kaepernick, because it was 49.
God.
All right, Michael, what can we do? Are we back?
Yes. You guys disappeared on me there. I'm here. Yes. But I wanted to hear what you guys were talking about the inspiration of sports and how it has pushed us into this new place that we needed to be for quite a long time.
Well, what Hank has done is Hank has made the correlation between Cap taking a knee and the police officers in Minnesota putting their knees on George Floyd's neck in a time in which they forced him to expire because of lack of breath, when it's breath that's infecting people with the coronavirus. So we're basically bringing together this idea of Cap taking a knee, the George Floyd death, coronavirus being spread by breath, and about how this becomes a part of the greater world. And we're basically talking about how that transcends from art into sports.
Right, and what I find very fascinating through it all, and I do believe that was I don't even know the word to put on it. Certainly unfortunate to see that happen with George Floyd, a man kneeling on his neck for almost 9 minutes. But after Cap 4 years ago was taking a knee for the social injustice, The happenings of both of them and the way that they came about, because even after Cap took a knee, we still saw much social injustice. We've seen the Breonna Taylors and all of those things, but it didn't get the attention of the George Floyd because the acts, both acts were so close to each other, and it blew our country away. It made everybody, because we were all inside, because we couldn't allow people to breathe on us because of COVID, everybody sitting at home had a chance to see it. And that's what made, I think, open the eyes to everybody and say, hey, listen, this is something that we have to do. We have to do something about it. And let me say this. I applaud all people, and there were a lot of people, because when I watched those protests, I saw more. I've never seen that many people that are not of color come out. And that's exactly what we needed, for the people that are not of color to come out and stand against the other people that are not of color and say, hey, wait a minute, this is not right. We have to do something about it. And they did, and I applaud them for that.
Yeah, go ahead, Hank. I'll let you jump back in. I don't want to keep you too long, because I know y'all trying to get dinner on the table, and we blew past your segment. But you start preaching. You know, I don't want to stop a good preacher when he's preaching. You know? But
no, just the inspiration. I'll just give you one thing about. I mean, I think we're living in one of those times where we all get to be prophets. You know, and we get to see the patterns. Something was fascinating to me is we know that, you know, for a period, Black athletes were the president's arch nemesis, and especially Colin Kaepernick. And guess when his birthday is? Kaepernick.
Don't say it.
Yep, November 3rd, Election Day.
No, wow.
Yep. So if there was ever opportunity to get sports fans to register to vote and celebrate, I mean, I think we should be giving him a national birthday party, because he is a critical part of changing this nation's, the whole conversation. So that's what you know. He may not have got you a ring, but there's a movement afoot, and I think spreading the word about, like, you know, each and every one of us. And I want to point out that Black athletes like Michael Irvin, but going back, you know, all the way back to Paul Robeson, you know, Jack Johnson. Whether it be Jesse Owens, Wilma Rudolph, Arthur Ashe, they opened doors for each and every generation through all the pain and the struggle and dedication they went through. And it's just, you know, I getting chills being on the phone, looking at you, and because, you know, just because I've seen you do the impossible in motion. and it may seem small to certain people, but it's actually giant steps. And I thank you so much for having me here, Susie and Pastor Mike, and with Michael Irvin.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure, man. And For Freedoms is Hank Willis Thomas organization. In this time, I do find that we all need as much inspiration as we can get. Sometimes inspiration will sneak up on you, and sometimes you can look for it and seek it out. So I hope everybody looks up, Google Hank Willis Thomas, support this brother, support his art, support his voice. Let your imagination be expanded by the great gifts being just channeled through him. And whether it's the Holy Ghost, Third Eye, the ancestors, Michael Irvin, whoever it is, all the inspiration we need. Thank you, Brother Hank, for coming on out. And I'm gonna make sure that we stay definitely connected. You the best. Appreciate you.
All right.
Well, I will make sure that you're connected, because that's my job in this, is to connect people. You know, Michael has seen your art, Hank, in my house, and I've talked to him about it before. And that is another reason why I wanted to look. If my greatest gift can be to communicate so that you guys can meet each other and go forth and do great things together, then it's a successful day. And that's why I wanted to bring in Michael, because I know that Hank and he could go forth and do great things together for the community and for the world. And we have to start thinking out of the box, right? We have to start thinking, how can we use our gifts and our connections to bring lights together? Because what could possibly happen, Pastor Mike, if because of you in this show, if these two men who are greats in their industries, I mean, you don't get much more important in the art world than Hank Willis Thomas. And if I can say, okay, guys, what can you do to take the pain from right now? And you're right, Michael. And because people in my community care just as much, and because the way we're raising our kids is we're not going to live like this anymore. How can I help you guys get together so you can put your heads together and build everybody else up? That's the goal. And that's why we're on this show with you.
Yeah.
Well-
And before I go, I just want to say shout out to Barbara Schuster, Susie's mother, who is also a legend in her own time. Thank you so much.
Hank, we love having you on.
Hank Willis Thomas talking about his best space. Now we're here with the playmaker, 201. I think that was the only defense that could keep you out of the end zone from time to time. 201. But welcome again, and talk a little bit just about how this COVID crisis is impacting some states that I know you are very, very familiar with. We got both Texas and we have Florida. How is this COVID impacting you where you're at?
I lost you guys. Pastor, I lost your volume.
Are you back?
You hear us?
Can you guys hear me?
We hear you.
Mike, get out, Mike. You
Uh-oh.
guys can hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
you guys can hear me because I can't hear you guys, and hopefully I'll be able to hear you guys. But and I don't know where you guys were, but I want to say some things too. You know, you guys, Pastor Mike, what you do is, you know, listen, there's nothing more important than eternal life. You know, and you guys are just talking about art and all both those things important. People get upset at athletes for pushing forward their voice. Mike, hold up. Mike, hold up. For pushing forward their voice in the realm that they are doing it on an athletic field, because they're like, hey, that's our sports. We want to hear sports. We're not getting to these gestures and stuff like that. But the reality is not getting to social justice and stuff like that. But the reality is, where else will we have the eyes and the ears to make a statement? We know this is the place to make a statement because everybody is tuned in because we all love sports. And that's why that platform becomes a powerful platform for athletes to make those protests.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me. Mike, can you hear us yet or not yet?
I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this. Sorry, I'm not hearing you guys.
Hey, Navarro, why don't you mute me? I'm going to call Mike and I'm going to tell him what we'd love to talk about. Take over Pastor Mike for a sec.
All right. So why don't we bring on?
Still not hearing you, Pastor. I want to hear.
Yeah, so bring on Dewana, and me and Dewana can rap a little bit while the older folks work out their tech. So I can say, man, the great legendary Dewana Thompson, all the way from they call it Rock City out here, Birmingham, Alabama. Welcome to Mass for the People. Now I want y'all to know I've been trying to book Dewana for at least 3 months, and every single time she was on a flight somewhere, going hither to and fro. Doing all kind of work, making sure. I think the last time I tried to book you was on your way to Alaska. I don't know who needed woke vote in Alaska, but I hope
I needed it.
I hope that's what they was looking for. But Dewana Thompson, y'all, let me not do the friend thing. Dewana Thompson is the creator of Woke Vote, a program specifically designed to engage, mobilize, turn out underrepresented percentages of African-American millennial faith-based voters in Alabama and a number of states all across the country. Her program led to over 100,000 contacts, which helped to propel the Democrat Doug Jones. Yep, Doug Jones in 2000, was that 17? 17 or 18? Woo, Lord,
I know.
First Democrat senator from the state of Alabama. Dewana has all kinds of experiences. Actually, she's working in the Obama White House, is where I first became acquainted with her in the White House, and I was in there asking for reparations, and she's sitting on the side laughing at me like, who is this crazy man up in here asking us for reparations?
It woke me up. That was my favorite thing. Half the time that I worked there, that was the best thing that happened.
And she helped us to launch Black Church PAC and a lot of our work. This is the Democratic National Convention. In the last at least 3 or 4 conventions, you would actually be there on the ground organizing God knows what to make the thing kind of work. Now, this particular day or week or month, you are in Louisville. So we'll get to Louisville in a second, but talk about the significance of the Democratic National Convention, why this week is so important, and just love to get some of your political hot takes. Obviously, Kamala Harris being chosen as the vice president has great significance for lots of different reasons. So let's start with Democratic National Convention. Man, it's virtual this year. That's pretty great.
Well, first of all, thanks, Reverend McBride, for having me on here. What you all are doing has been so critical. It has created such a platform for people to really know what's going on in each of the individual communities that around the country, especially as it relates to their access to healthcare and resources, particularly during COVID. And so I know so many communities who have been able to highlight these issues because they had something like this. And so I appreciate your leadership on that. Yes, this is the beginning of the DNC convention. And believe it or not, though I'm not there, I actually still managed all of the DNC Black Caucus meetings on behalf of the chair of the Black Caucus. And so we have, today was the first meeting for the DNC Black Caucus from 2 to 4 p.m. And you had people talking about, we were able to have Tamika Mallory from Until Freedom. We were able to have Congresswoman Barbara Lee. We were able to have so many different individuals on today. Derek Johnson with the NAACP, all talking about where we stand in this moment as it relates to our politics and really what who do we want to be? Because I think at the end of the day, November is really not about Donald Trump or Joe Biden. It's about who we are as Americans. When we go to that ballot or we go to that poll, or if we have to do mail-in, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But the point of the matter is we are making an unequivocal statement about who we are as a people in November. And I'm hoping that I still believe that we are people who are ultimately good, that we ultimately want to take care of each other, that we ultimately believe in righteous leadership. I do believe that we have a lot to do, and the Democratic Black Caucus and the DNC has a lot of work to do to ensure that people feel that their votes are safe, that people feel that they can, that the processes for when they try to vote, that they can go and do that in the most healthy way. And that's a lot of what they're talking about during the DNC convention this year. We also had last night, we did kick off with a faith event that was supporting and celebrating the legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson. And I think that's really important to note that, we have lost so many of our civil rights icons over just this year alone in 2020. And a lot of times, a phenomenon in a lot of communities, but particularly in the Black community, is that sometimes people, our legacy, our greats, they die before we get a chance to really celebrate the work that they have done. And so the chair of the DNC Black Caucus, Virgie Rollins, really wanted to have a program that lifted up the significance of a Reverend Jesse Jackson. Without a Reverend Jesse Jackson, there wasn't the opportunity for so many of these other people to serve. And so we did that last night. You had the likes of Congresswoman Maxine Waters. You had Mark Morial, Michael Eric Dyson. You had Bishop Vashti McKenzie. You had Dr. Jamal Bryant. I mean, it was a amazing moment in time where people were just saying, here is what Reverend Jesse Jackson has meant to this country. Here's what he means in the context of the 2020 election. This is the man who said that there are rocks laying around on the ground that we haven't used, right? He is the litmus by which we plan all organizing tactics. And so I think that the DNC Black Caucus specifically has been very thoughtful. All of the program has talked about why Black Lives Matter. All of it is talking about Black votes. All of it is talking about why we should be super, super conscious in this moment and what resources we need to push that forward. So I'm really thoughtful, I'm really grateful that I've been able to be a part of that, even though we're not there in person. It definitely is something to behold. And I hope you guys will tune back in and see some of the things that they're talking about on Wednesday from 2 to 4.
Susie, welcome back. I don't know if you got a chance to know and meet Dawana, but Dawana is one of the brain trust, the brain behind a lot of the Black voter engagement work happening in the South. And so definitely wanted to bring her on at the beginning of the Democratic National Convention, and she can share a little bit of some of the stuff that's happening. You should know, Dawana, that Kamala Harris is a really good friend of Susie Schuster, and Susie Schuster has been one of Kamala's biggest supporters. And I know that her being chosen as the vice president candidate for this ticket is it's just a great, significant milestone for all women, Black women in particular. Say a quick word about that significance, and then Susie, come behind and just talk about your friend. I know you super excited about it.
Well, if I could tell you this, Dawana, I would tell you this. I think Kamala means everything to every woman out there. When I brought my daughter, when she was 4, to Kamala's office in DC, I have a picture of Kamala bending down to her height to talk to her and look in her eyes. And it didn't matter what color she was. It was a woman. She saw a little girl, saw a woman standing there in this powerful role. And I know what Kamala means to women around the country, not just in the Black community, and what it must feel like in the Black community to see this woman there, hopefully as our next vice president, but what it means to women everywhere. Because I have this conversation all the time when I speak with people within the Black community, as I work on gun violence prevention with Pastor Mike. Women are a minority just as much as anybody else. And the fact of the matter is, to see a woman who doesn't just represent being a woman, but a woman of color as well, is inspirational for kids, my kids' age, who don't see color. Because the truth is that when these kids are so little, they don't pay attention. They learn that it's different as they get older.
Yeah.
So if I'm able to show my daughter and my sons, here's Kamala. She's going to be your next vice president. They don't look at her and say, oh, there's a Black woman or a woman of color. They look at her as a woman. And so that makes me feel so proud, Dawana. And that's why I'm so grateful for all that you are doing, especially in Kentucky. As Mike and I know, we talk a lot about Amy McGrath's race down there and getting the community engaged, because if she doesn't reach out to the color community, to the community of color, then she will not win that race. So what you're doing in Louisville may be the most important thing in the entire country.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, to speak to the significance of what I'm going to call Vice President Harris's race or nomination, I think one is that we're talking about 100 years of suffrage that we're celebrating this year. We're talking about the fact that it took this long for us to see sort of the fulfillment of hard work, of a lot of hard work from women across this country, and particularly the hard work of Black women and women of color across this country. Black women are the largest voting bloc for the Democratic Party. Black women have successfully supported almost every movement for freedom that you can think of in this country. And so the moment that, she was announced, whether you were supporting her before, during her run for president, what I tell everybody is that it absolutely changed the spirit of the race. It absolutely changed the moment, because we needed that. For whatever reason, we were able to it's almost like people forgot whatever they thought before that moment, and they saw that it was hopeful, right? They thought, oh my God, we really just did something. Mm-hmm. And this is a woman who, with this opportunity, I don't know who, I told everybody, this is one of the most qualified people on this planet to serve in this role, man or female, male or female. She's definitely qualified to do this work. I know that she's ready to do the work. And I do believe that she brought a needed energy to where we are politically right now, and we're starting to see people get more to see people get invigorated again by it. But I do think that obviously people are saying, okay, this is great, this is a step. Now we need to hold this Biden-Harris ticket accountable for the things that we need to see, and for what voters need to get engaged to turn out in November. So it's not necessarily enough that we have this inspiration. It's now that you've done something, and we're glad that you're doing it. What are you running on? What promises can we hold as voters? What are you going to stake your reputation on, Vice President Harris and Vice President Biden? What are you going to state your claim to that we can hold on to as we engage voters? And I mean, as I am sitting here in Louisville, Kentucky right now, a part of a collaborative of organizers and activists who took residency here for 30 days to do two things. One, to highlight the grave injustice that we're still seeing in the case of Breonna Taylor, but two, to talk about what we just saw in the Kentucky primary elections. The fact that Louisville, the largest city, we're one of the largest cities in the state, and also what we consider the blackest city in the state, had one polling location for the entire city.
Right.
One. Thousands of people were turned away. I'm not talking about what I heard. I'm talking about what I saw with my own eyes. We had organizers on the ground here. We had volunteers on the ground here. People were literally knocking on the door trying to vote. We cannot, that is a systemic, that's not something that just happened during this election cycle. People have been planning this type of voter suppression for a long time, and all we're seeing is the leaves. The roots is what we got to cut down, and so that's why that's what we're doing.
Let me jump in here because I was sharing this earlier when I was on a call with the AME Church this morning. We had over 230 AMEs on our call. They committed to turning out 1.5 million AMEs to vote, right? Yeah. And we had talked about how when I was in Kansas City, Kansas in 2011, doing some presentations about gun violence prevention work, a guy by the name of Chris Kobach, he was the Secretary of State for Kansas, gave one of his first presentations on voter fraud and voter cheating, like people voting, dead folks were voting. These were his claims. Chris Kobach was a Republican that was starting these seeds. This was 2011, to your point, Dewana, of we're just now seeing the fruit of a root that was planted years ago. ALEC, which is the kind of criminal justice or criminal prison lobby for Republicans, took his bill and passed it all across the country to get voter IDs passed to supposedly end voter fraud. But all the research said that they only found 31 credible incidents of voter fraud since 2000 out of 1 billion with a B, 1 billion votes cast. They found 31 credible cases. They said you're more likely to get struck with lightning a few times than have an incident of voter fraud. And so I think part of what we're trying to ensure that people do have access to vote, and your work and others is so important in places like Louisville, Kentucky, in places like Atlanta, Georgia, in places like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Detroit, Michigan, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and all kinds of places in between. If people don't have the access to the ballot box as was secured by our folks with lots of blood, sweat, and tears, their sacrifice would have been in vain. Talk a little bit more just about how important it is for us to think outside the box going into these last 80 days to make sure we can get the vote out and protect the ballot box from being overrun by all kinds of wicked forces.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. First of all, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. We are no stranger to voter suppression tactics. My screen is kind of going in and out. I'm not sure if that's me or not. Just tell me if I need to do something. But earlier this year, before COVID hit,
you there, Dewana?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Am I here?
Yeah, we see you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. I was saying that earlier this year, before COVID hit, we actually
It's amazing how it always freezes right when somebody is about to say something.
Weird. I don't know what is going on with that because I haven't checked. What, you know what? We're not going to, Al Gore Internet not going to take me out today. What we will do, I'll just start from saying that we gave out a test that was likened to the kinds of tests that voters were asked, or would-be voters were asked to take in the 50s, and all the kind of crazy things like what's the second line of the Constitution, or the 37 word in the state, preamble, and those kinds of things. And we had voters who were registering to vote or who had already voted take that test. every last one of them failed. Every last person, but it illuminated their understanding of how crazy and how really just cynical you have to be to put together something like that to stop a voter. Well, I tell you this, how cynical and how crazy do you have to be to pull up mailboxes and mail out of the ground, you know, when you know that vote by mail has to be one of the ways that we do this work? How cynical do you have to be to say that a college student who may not even be on campus because of COVID still has to have a college ID to vote if you know that they're not even going back to retrieve that? These are tactics that are modern day poll tax. They are modern day gummy, how many beans are in the jar, right? And we have to call it what it is, but we also just have to make sure that people know what the rules and the opportunities are outside of that. And what we've been telling people is this: a lot of people for a long time have never trusted the vote by mail process. I don't know why it is, but especially in the Black community, it's not been the most trusted process. So I'm gonna tell you right now, most of our people, if the poll is open, they going, you know what I'm saying? And so what we have to figure out is, how do we make it as safe as possible? That's why the Mask for the People program is so important, because we need to have masks, sanitizers, whatever resources that we need. We saw this in Wisconsin. We saw this in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. We saw this in Louisville. We saw this in Georgia. I was there. People were standing in line till 1 o'clock in the morning to try to vote. And I believe that they're going to do it again. Why? Because in this moment, people actually see their vote as a protest. Mm-hmm. That is a little bit different than what we've seen in the last couple of years, right? As it comes to voting. When I asked a young lady the other day when she was at the polling location, I asked her how long she had been standing there. She said, I've been in line for 5 hours. And wow. I said, I just need you to hold on. And she said, I'm not going nowhere because they think I'm not going to vote and I'm going to prove them wrong. So it wasn't, she was protesting the idea that you're trying to take something from me. I'm going to stay here until I vote. And so I think that's what we actually have to lift up. That's the kind of confidence that we have to give people, that you're not going to leave. We're going to figure out how to make sure your vote counts, and that we're going to be there with you until it does.
The great DeWanna Thompson, I'm so appreciated to get you on, kick off our DNC week of coverage, DNC programming. And thank you for the work that you're doing down in Louisville with all the homies for freedom. I mean, until we had Hank on earlier talking about for freedom. Now we got a freedom. And somebody go next week talk about we got our freedoms, hopefully. But give our best to Linda and Tamika and Steve Green and everybody there. Justice for Breonna Taylor. Arrest the Breonna Taylor killers. Put them in jail ASAP, quickly. And let's wrap a bow on that. WokeVote.us. Y'all can go and support, donate. Make sure that WokeVote has all they need to get the vote out in these states. They are some of our most important troops on the ground. So please do all that you can to support their work. Thanks again, DeWanna. We'll see you in the field.
Thank you. Thank you, Susie.
Thanks, DeWanna.
All right. Well, I think we're going to close out with Playmaker. Is he still around?
Well, thank goodness. There he is.
Oh, look at, man, you look like you went to the studio, Doc, and you got a studio quality internet.
No. Susie helped me. She said, put it on your iPad and get it off your phone. That should help, and hopefully this is helping.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Yeah. So yeah, the iPad's working a little bit better.
Well, it's great to have you back, and great to have you on. You know, we were just talking with one of our leading activists down in hanging out in Louisville right now around the Breonna Taylor stuff. I think when we lost you before, we were talking about the inspiration of athletes and how to make sure social justice issues are being attended to in your years of life. I mean, have you ever seen this kind of coalescing and unifying? Marshall Faulk said something, I put it in my sermon this week, that our differences should not create division. I thought that was so profound. We're seeing people unifying. As someone who's played on teams that have won championships, talk about the importance of unity. How can we cultivate unity even amongst the difference we see?
And there's nothing more beautiful. Pastor Susie, you guys hear all the time when guys leave the great game, leave any sport. They don't talk about, they talk about how great it was playing, But the thing they talk about the most is that locker room and the unity in that locker room. How lines are erased, you know, color lines, socioeconomical background lines, everything is erased, and you all come together for one cause, one purpose, one direction. We're seeing some of that in our country today, and it's a beautiful thing to see. Make no mistake about it. It's a beautiful thing to see. How we have gotten here is horrific, but what is being produced by it is actually beautiful, and I love seeing that unity. And when I cut off earlier, I was talking about that, you know, what things bring us together. This is why some people get so upset at the social injustice demonstrations on the sports field, because they're like, well, I just want to watch my sports. Of course you do. And it means something to you. That's why we have to bring it here so that you can see it. You know what I mean? Protesting in some place, no one seeing it isn't getting anything accomplished. Protesting a place where everybody's seeing it and it makes everybody that's comfortable a little uncomfortable, that's the beginning of change. I love Bishop Jakes. That's my spiritual father, pastor. And the sermon he preached that I'm telling you, anybody and everybody should get. And it was called Stir the Nest. And he used the eagles and how God and how the eagle stirs up the nest for his eaglets to get out and fly. If not, they will sit in that nest and rest and sit on their laurels. But he stirs up that nest and pushes them out to fly. Our nest has been stirred. And we all have to now get out and fly and make it right. And I believe we can do that.
Man, you make me want to raise an offering real quick, man. Should I send that to you or to Bishop Jakes? Which one should I send that?
Hey, send it to my spiritual father. I'm telling you, because whenever I start sounding like him, and we all sound like him, I think just like all the people you pastor, everybody in your church pastor, I guarantee you catch them in their quiet time, all they're doing is repeating what you have given them. That's what fathers, sons are supposed to do. Father, daughters are supposed to do. You're supposed to lead them and teach them, and then they go out and repeat it and make great things happen. And certainly I appreciate all that you are doing to make that happen. But everything goes to Bishop. I had a radio show. I'll tell this story right quick. And I brought Dion on the show. And Dion came on, and I'm interviewing Dion. And man, Dion saying same thing. I'm saying all the Bishop stuff. Dion comes on saying all the Bishop stuff. I was in the break saying, hey, you're never coming back. You're never coming back, buddy. This is your one time. You're never coming back on my show, because people will know that we're both stealing. We sound just like Bishop, right? So they'll know that we're both stealing. But that's the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to get it from our fathers. And that's why, Susie, I tell you, one of the things that I really try to give my time to is the fatherlessness issue. Fatherlessness issue we have in this country. You know, and when you look at 90% of the people that are incarcerated come from fatherless homes. 85% of the people that are having mental issues come from fatherless homes. It's a real issue in this country. We're about, I think, 30% Caucasian Americans, about 51% Hispanic Americans, 73% African Americans, kids growing up in their home without their fathers. And that's something that we have to fix. And especially now, this is what got to me mostly about the COVID situation is because of it, everybody had to start isolating in their homes. And I worried about all of those kids that I just mentioned that doesn't have a father in their homes, and especially right now, missing the guidance that they need. Like, hey, we need to be careful here. No, you can't go out, son. There's a pandemic going on out there. They put that kind of those kind of instructions in on kids. So I think it's important that we all as men try to encourage the fathers that are on their post, but also try to encourage the fathers that are not. Come on, buddy, step up. Let's get back to work. Let's get back in there. It's not just about what you can buy a kid. It's about the time you can give the kid. I think that's important.
Yeah, we have been finding that when you look at the studies, Black men spend more time with their kids outside of the home than any other group. And so that campaign, I know the Obama presidency started a big fatherhood initiative, and I think it's borne a lot of fruit. But part of what I think we have to keep realizing, some of what Black Lives Matter protests are about is about the systemic racism that causes Black men and others to be criminalized so much, where they end up in jails and prisons and they lose the opportunity to be present. When you think of COVID and the impact it's had on the states that I know you're from Florida, and I was a big fan of yours when you were at the U. Somebody say, man, you was bad. Woo, you was a bad man at the U, buddy. And then Texas, right? Those two states are having some of the hardest hit realities around COVID. Talk a little bit about what do you think we all got to figure out ways to do to come together, get that team-like atmosphere in these states across the country to make sure people wash their hands, stay inside, don't go outside to the what they call it last time, Wing City, what's that place down there in Florida?
Right. You brought up something it's very critical. And we talk about how COVID has hit the homes and hit the areas of fatherhood that we are talking about. And that's that you gave, that most African-American fathers are spending time with their kids outside of the home. And why is that? Well, what's going on? Because they're not in the home. Why is that? Let's keep going deeper. Because of what we call the systemic racism, where you're getting all of these minor charges as kids growing up, little minor charges as kids that now as you get to be old enough, you can't go find a job because you have these little minor charges. You have all these charges on you, and it perpetuates you now because you start getting attacked in your manhood. I gotta provide, to go out and do more illegal stuff trying to provide, and now you end up in prison, and that kid has no guidance and no father whatsoever. That is the process that has doomed African Americans for a long time, and that's what we have to correct. And some of the decriminalizing little small things like marijuana and all of those things. Stop catching these kids at such an early age that don't even have a lawyer to fight that little small case to help you get the case dropped and get the record expunged. So because a kid at 10, 12 years old doesn't know that's going to affect him at 20 years old when he's trying to get a job. He's just thinking, I'm just making a dumb kid mistake. But it's going to cost you for the rest of your life. It's not just a dumb kid mistake. So some of those issues we definitely have to clean up and try to get the fathers back in the home, not just spending time with them outside the home.
Well, I must say, Susie, you know, you got quite a Rolodex of folks here that we may just have to call this the Mass for the People Susie Schuster show. I mean, she's bringing in quite the heavyweights, and it's just such a blessing to have you hanging out with us. And you know, I do appreciate the passion that you have for these kind of issues, and I just want to encourage you to keep sounding the alarm. You know, it's great to hear the analysis of former players on these sports shows, helping make sense of the protests to audiences where, you know, folks don't make sense of it. I was one of the folks in Ferguson, and I got arrested multiple times for protesting, and people left my church. They thought I was some crazy radical. Now everybody going to jail for protesting. I'm like, man, how come they don't come back to my church? Now everybody's going to jail. Well, I think it's because you all are helping folks make sense of it, and I think we need those kind of interlocutors, you know, those translators to make sense of it. So thanks so much.
And Pastor, thank you. And Susie is incredible. She really is incredible. She's a beautiful soul, a beautiful spirit. I don't mind saying it. You know, when all of this went down, you know, Susie, Rich, those guys called and they were like, you know, they were like, listen, what can we do? What can I do? I'm so sorry. Well, you know, and honestly, I was like, what do you mean? What can you do? You've been doing what you need to do. They're just great people who love everybody. Keep doing that. What we have to do is get the rest of the people out here like you. That's what we have to do. We have to find more people like you who like the man said when he all started it, who judge people on the content of their character and not the color of their skin. Susie and Rich has had me do baby naming ceremonies at their home.
Wow.
I'm not Jewish, even though my last name is Irvin. I've been called Irving and Irwin, but that's what I'm saying. At the most intimate moments, the moments that mean the most to them, I was there. I was there at their wedding. Mm-hmm. I was there, and this was long before we started working together. I was working with Susie at ESPN, and that's long before Rich and I started working together at the network. But that's what I'm talking about: getting out, making those relationships, meeting people, seeing diversity, and being a part of the diversity, and saying just because we're a different color doesn't mean we're different. We are all humans, and we all bleed red, and that's the most important thing. It's just like the blood. We have to focus on the blood.
Oh, there goes another one.
Rich walked in here. I'm sitting in Rich's office, and he walked in and he heard Michael's voice, and he got teary. He's like, "I miss him. I want to come. You want to come take my place or what? I mean, get out of my anchor chair, Rich." But he heard Michael's voice, and he got emotional. I mean, my kids call him Uncle Michael. I mean, that's what I talked about earlier with Hank, is that our jobs as parents, and I thought Mike put it perfectly with the eaglets. I have to scramble my nest here so that my kids grow up seeing different colors and appreciating different colors. And it starts here. So I think that we have an activist generation.
I don't even think you know what you just did. And it's so beautiful. And that's just your spirit. That's just who you are. Now I'm going to say that as African American, let me help people, because you hear people all the time say, I don't see color. And I know what they're trying to say. And I appreciate what they're trying to say. What they're trying to say is I don't see color where it makes a difference upon me. But what Susie just said is I'm teaching my kids to grow up and see all of those colors and appreciate the differences of those colors. Mm-hmm. That's what we're looking for. That's what we don't want you to act like something's not there. Oh, there's a difference. Colors are different. That's okay. But that means maybe something I have that you don't know about that I can share with you. And maybe there's something you have that I don't know about that you can share with me. And we put it all in a pot. We give it to each other, and we become a better people as one people. That's a beautiful thing. I didn't mean to cut you off, Susie, but I love the way you said it. And how many times have we heard people say it the other way, which is not the correct way. The correct way is I teach them to see the color, but don't let that make a difference in your assessment of the person. Measure him on the content of his character.
What did I tell you, Pastor Mike? Did I tell you were going to love this man, or did I tell you you're going to love this man?
And look, I was a little suspicious because of that cowboy stuff, but I guess I gotta lay my little jersey down and give a playmaker some props. He done scored another touchdown on the 49er guy, but no, it is indeed a blessing to share the space. And yeah, Susie, when we first talked, she said, "I'm gonna call Michael. I'm gonna call Hank. I'm gonna call Dion." She started naming. I was like, okay, because you hear people say what they gonna do, but I must say, she has not only got some really great folks like really helping to amplify our work, but just you being on. I hope you all know, every time we do an episode on a Monday, our giving for Mass for the People triples. Our donations just by doing this every week. That's the reason why we keep doing it, because people come on and they hear folks talk about mask and sanitizer, or they get inspired and they say, I'm gonna give an extra $50 or $100, $200. We've raised now over $2 million of donations. We've handed out over 3 million masks and 100,000 bottles of hand sanitizer in 25 states. We only thought we were going to be doing it for 3 or 4 months because, that's what they said, at the beginning, that we'll be back to normal in the summer. And now it looks like because the pandemic is about to come back in a real tough manner in the winter with the flu, we decided we had to keep this on just a while longer. And so Kamal Bell, he's probably upset that he couldn't be on because he's a big sports fan. Steve Kerr's been on. Susie's been on. You all have really blessed us in a powerful way. And I just want you to know that people in 25 cities are being blessed by y'all spending these 15, 20 minutes with us a week. It's just a great, incredible team effort to get masks and sanitizers for free to some of our most vulnerable populations in the country.
For free. And I appreciate that, because there's another thing that we take for granted. Like I have masks. If I don't have a mask, I can run to 7-Eleven. I'll run in and pick up a mask. But there are a lot of people that don't have that luxury and walking around without anything and exposed. So I just appreciate the work you guys are doing to keep them safe and to do the right thing and helping them out.
The great Michael Irvin, Hall of Famer, NFL Hall of Famer. And I think he may have an Emmy in his future around some broadcasting. I don't know. It seems like he's mastering that.
Get some trophies, Mike. Get them.
Put that in the picture for me.
Oh, look at that. My bad.
That's what they call an Emmy right there.
I think so.
I know.
So,
I should have it up there with those Super Bowl trophies because it means this much to me. But God is, man. I've worked with great people in every facet of my life, in football and certainly now in the things that I do, and great people that want to do great, that want to help other people and get up every day and challenge themselves to be the best. And that's what makes you the best. And we all have to try to do that somewhere in whatever walk of life that we are walking. Get up every morning and challenge yourself to go and be the best. And I appreciate you guys for doing just that.
well, there it is. How do you top that?
Next time, I'm going to park Miami next to me.
Yes.
I'm going to bring
You got
Look,
comedian.
with my Emmys.
You're Emmys.
Love you,
Well,
Mike. Absolutely
yeah.
love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Well, that wraps it up for today. Man, we have had quite a memorable time.
We've had a good 2-week run.
Yes. Well, we'll see if you got any more up your sleeve. See who else we got coming down the pike. But I know for sure we're gonna definitely have you to help us preview these videos. These PSAs are going to be coming down the pike, and I just want to appreciate you for hanging out with us. Free to hang out many more times, wherever you want to. The great Susie Schuster, she is amazing, and we're going to keep doing a lot of great work together because there's a lot of great work to do, particularly over these next 80 days. So how can folks support whatever you're working on these days, Susie? I know you got a whole lot of irons in the fire.
Well, I'm going to be working on supporting our girl Kamala Harris make her way to the White House with Joe Biden. So I'm going to be working on that. I'm working on the Amy McGrath campaign in Kentucky. So it's great to talk to Dewana because we need her help. And you and I have some things up our proverbial sleeves together on that front. And, I sit in on the Rich Eisen show, which is on NBC Sports and Peacock. So I'll be sitting in, taking up that studio space. And I work on a couple of things behind that I can't even talk about making some change for November 3rd. Got a couple, I'm the silent whisperer in a couple of organizations, and I just can't say what they are, but Pastor Mike, all you know is that it's going to be all about November 3rd.
Yes. And we found out today from the great Hank Willis Thomas that's Kaepernick's birthday. So that should be a great influence of irony, hopefully, and joy. So thanks again, Susie. Thank you all. Please stay connected with us. Go to maskforthepeople.org or livefreeusa.org and keep supporting. We'll see you next week. Wash your hands, wear a mask, shelter in place, and let's stay safe. God bless everybody.